Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight on Health, hosted by the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies. We are so glad you're here this evening. My name is Natasha Lance. I'm the executive director here. I'm going to hand it over to our very capable host, Dr. Mike Hawley, who is the head of our medical advisory board at the Center for Nutrition Studies. Dr. Hawley, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Natasha, and welcome everyone from across the country and around the world. I just saw a Mark from China even. So we've had lots of areas of the world, Dr. Klaper, and then tuning in to hear what you have to share. Tonight, Dr. Klaper will speak to us about mechanisms of disease reversal, utilizing plant-based nutrition and the whole body improvements people experience when making plant-based dietary changes. So whether you're new to the whole food plant-based lifestyle or maybe a plant-based veteran, you're going to enjoy what Dr. Klaper is going to share this evening. Michael Klaper, MD, is a devoted educator of physicians and other healthcare professionals. His training is in surgery, anesthesiology, orthopedics, and obstetrics, amongst others. He is the author of Vegan Nutrition, Pure and Simple. He contributed to 2 PBS television programs, Food for Thought and the award-winning Diet for a New America. Dr. Klaper has served as a director of the Institute of Nutrition Education and Research, where he conducted a study focused on people who ate completely plant-based or vegan diet. He has been a staff member at the True North Health Center, North America's premier nutritionally based medical clinic that specializes in therapeutic fasting and health improvement through a whole food plant-based diet. He serves on the advisory board for the Plantition Project and the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. And yes, Dr. Klaper also serves on the medical advisory board of the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies. Welcome, Dr. Klaper.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. It's a joy and a pleasure to be with you and your audience.
Yeah, so Dr. Klaper joins us from Victoria, British Columbia, and we're just excited to have him here this evening. Before we went on air, we were talking a little bit about his training and what he's doing right now. And I want, Dr. Klaper, if you could share a little bit about what you're doing right now in Victoria. And we talked about some plant-based dietitians, and I want to hear a little more about that.
Yes, well, thank you. Because the vast majority of people in the 21st century come to their doctor for medical help for their condition, whatever it might be: overweight, diabetes, clogged arteries, high blood pressure, obesity, autoimmune disease, inflammatory conditions of all organs there. And it turns out, of course, surprise, surprise, that the vast majority of these conditions are largely the result of people eating the standard American diet with the meat and dairy and oil and sugars and processed foods, and a sedentary lifestyle, high stress, etc. These are lifestyle artifacts or results of unhealthy lifestyle practices. Last year, I was invited to join the staff of the Aroga Lifestyle Medicine Clinic up here in Victoria, British Columbia. It certainly called to my heart when I met the wonderful doctors on the staff there, because they're all plant-based. It's a plant-based clinic, and I will be showing you a slide later in my presentation of the patient flow at Aroga. And everyone comes in, they're seen by the physician there. They've got 5 board-certified internists that see the patient. And the very next stop is to the plant-based dietitian. And everybody gets a plant-based consultation from the dietitian that is paid for as part of the medical care system there. And then the follow-up every few weeks, every month, is with both the doctor and the dietitian, so people know that there's someone tuning into the food side, which is the major driver of these diseases. And there are food coaches available. These folks are really trying to get people healthy. I asked, where do you get your patients? They said, oh, we're on very good terms with the with the Victoria medical community, the cardiologists send us their patients, the gastroenterologists send us their colitis patients, the rheumatologists send us their lupus patients because we get them healthy. The Canadian medical system is creaking under the demand that the public is placing upon it. And so any doctor who can actually reverse these diseases and lighten the load on the individual practitioners as well as the financial structure of the healthcare system is valued. And so we're getting lots of support from the Canadian government, from the local Victoria medical community. And it's fun to see people get healthy. Everybody comes in, gets an 8-week course in lifestyle medicine practices that will help. And I teach those courses and follow these people along. It's a whole different kind of medicine than working in the urgent care clinic, sewing up cuts and treating gastroenteritis. So I'm really enjoying this. It's just a great, exciting career. And the people couldn't be nicer at the clinic. The Canadians really do live up to that stereotype that, gee, they're very nice people. They really are. And everybody from the stores at the gas station, whatever, they're very friendly people. And as I said, at the staff at the medical clinic are very positive, friendly people that know that we're doing some important frontier medicine. What I want to do, of course, is to collect the beneficial results of these folks, tabulate how their weight goes down, their blood pressure goes down, the medicines that we have them on goes down, and gather those up and bring them to the American College of Cardiology, the American Medical Association, to the public press, and say, this is what happens when you get a plant-based dietitian on your primary care treatment team. People get healthier. I want to embarrass them into recognizing this fundamental truth that it's the food that people are eating, and healthy up the food, you wind up healthying up the patients as well. So it's an exciting chapter of my medical career, and so that's what I'm doing up here in Victoria, lovely city. Really enjoying being here.
That is fabulous, Dr. Klaper. Thank you for sharing that. I look forward to that paper so I can embarrass a few doctors around here too.
We're all in need of it. I wind up apologizing for my profession a lot. It's embarrassing already that the Western medicine is holding back. We're a major bottleneck in a widespread adoption of plant-based nutrition. If the doctors really actively promoted it, it would change everything. And that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to reach the medical students with that message. Plant-based nutrition is the key to reversing these diseases. I'll share this with you during my presentation, but again, exciting time to be practicing medicine.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, and share what your presentation with us.
Okay, fair enough. This is going to be a slightly shortened presentation of what I've been giving to the medical students and young interns and residents around the country. Let me share my screen and so let me get rid of the video panel and the media control. Great. Okay, I hope everybody can see this is basically the mechanisms of disease reversal, how it works to reverse these diseases utilizing plant-based nutrition. I have no financial disclosures to make. I owe nothing to nobody but the truth here. I want to get this fundamental reality out. I'm a standard Western trained physician doing blood and guts medicine for the first 10 years of my life, of my career, watching people get fatter and sicker and getting their heart attacks and strokes. I was really a despairing young doctor. I thought I would be going into anesthesia just to run away from my failures as a general practitioner. But after a few years training to be an anesthesiologist, I realized I didn't want to put people to sleep all day. I wanted to help them wake up to the reality of their health situation. And so I found my way, partway through my career, to the hallowed halls of True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And I had the privilege of being on the attending staff at True North for almost 9 years. And what we saw there was nothing short of spectacular. People came in with the standard Western diseases. They were overweight, if not clinically obese, like most Americans now are. We saw rampant blood vessel disease, clogged arteries showing up as angina and leg pain, elevated lipids, elevated blood pressure, saw rampant type 2 diabetes with all its complications, and a host of inflammatory diseases involving every organ system from lungs to gut to joints to immune system. This is Western medicine in the 21st century. When I talk to the medical students and the residents, I tell them, you may be learning how to diagnose and treat all sorts of wonderful and weird diseases from smallpox to leprosy. But when you open the door of the clinic you're working, doesn't matter what specialty you're in, family practice, emergency medicine, pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, orthopedics, well, no matter the specialty, you open the clinic door, who's waiting there for you? Mr. and Mrs. America, or Mr. and Mrs. Canada, or Mr. and Mrs. Australia. And it's a large group of people with these small set of diseases. This is Western medicine in the 21st century. If you're working in Central Africa, it's a whole different type of medicine. But if you're practicing in a Western setting, this is the disease spectrum you're going to see. And at True North, instead these people came in, and instead of putting them on higher doses of beta blockers and insulin, we put them on a whole food plant-based diet. And that means that every day, and they would stay there for weeks at a time, 2, 3, 4 weeks or longer. And every morning there was a large vat of oatmeal, freshly made, with a whole variety of berries and sliced almonds and sunflower seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, all ground up, and a variety of plant milks, oat milk, rice milk, hemp milk. So this was breakfast. Every lunch, every dinner had big colorful salads, hearty bowls of vegetable soup, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, um, and a large selection of really filling entrees, hearty curries and chilies and soups and stews, and no cheese burritos and no oil stir fries. We want people to eat as much as this as they want. There's no portion control. There's no calorie counting or carb counting. These are whole plant foods, and the reality is that whole plant foods, as Mother Nature designed them, are mostly made of fiber and water. That's what's on your plate, and that food doesn't stick to you. The fiber passes out in the stool. You pee out the water, and you wind up lean. If you go back for a third bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? It's all fiber and water. Doesn't stick to you. This is joyful eating, is guilt-free eating, and plenty of colorful sweet fruit for dessert. This is the food stream that these people would ingest meal after meal, day after day, week after week. And the changes in these people's bodies that I was privileged to witness were nothing short of spectacular. Within days, the obesity begins to melt away. They lose about 2 pounds a day to start with. That's mostly bloat and water out of their tissues. But as the weeks go by, that weight loss is pretty consistent, 0.5 pound or 1 pound a day, as they're starting to burn off their fat. The magnesium in the food helps their blood vessels dilate, their arteries open up, their blood pressures come down, and we can start reducing the blood pressure pills they're on. It's an anti-inflammatory diet, and so inflammation throughout the body recedes, and we'll talk about why and how. But their joints stop hurting, their migraine headaches get better, they start turning into healthy people. With all the lovely fiber in all the fruits and vegetables and the resistant starches in the beans and the fibers in the celery and asparagus, etc. All that fiber gives these people their first good bowel movement they've had in years, and that improves their outlook on the entire universe as their bowels start working better. We'll talk about why their skin conditions, their eczema, their psoriasis, their acne starts to clear up. The asthmatic folks stop wheezing so much. They stop using their albuterol inhalers. They get a good night's sleep. And the medications they're on for high blood pressure, for diabetes, for inflammatory disease, we back those right down. And the intention is to get them off these medications altogether. We're talking about the concept of disease reversal, which we'll go into in a second. But these are before and after pictures of people who were seen at the clinic. We're taking a similar program. This is Dr. Furman's patient, but also basically the same results. And all these people who adopt this kind of diet. And I have to laugh when I look at the commercials on television and I see the weight loss commercials and the little fine print on the bottom of many of these programs. These results are not typical. Well, the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet is what you see here. These results are typical. This is what's supposed to happen. This is what does happen. We see disease reversal. What are we talking about? For the clinician out there, we're talking about remission of clinical symptoms. The joints stop hurting, the lungs stop wheezing, the skin clears up. You see clinical improvements in their body, but also their lab results normalize, their lipids come down normal, their inflammatory markers come down. They wind up with normal values on their blood tests as well. This is the concept of disease reversal. I practiced medicine for almost 35 years before anybody put these two words in the same sentence for me, but now they are the watchword of my medical practice, and it should be for every physician and every patient. The doctor should introduce the concept, to lovingly leave it across the desk and ask, how'd you like to get rid of your high blood pressure? How'd you like to get rid of your type 2 diabetes? How'd you like to get rid of your lupus? No one's saying those words, but these are eminently achievable goals here. And the doctor should see reversing these diseases as a goal and put that in the patient's mind, that this is what we're trying to do, is reverse these diseases, get you out from under this diagnosis. I wish someone in medical school had told me that hypertension is reversible. We get the opposite message. They will take these pills the rest of their life. Now, diabetes, one's on insulin, always on insulin. No one gets off insulin. And that's true, doctor. If you don't talk to them about what they're eating and change their diet, that is what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. These are eminently reversible diseases. They're caused by what we're eating. Clean up the diet, and these diseases go away. It's the most exciting concept in medicine, most revolutionary concept in medicine. And we're trying to get that into the heads of the young doctors. And then through our Moving Medicine Forward program, I'll tell you about that at the end of our presentation. So I became, by default, but also out of joy, I became a student over the years of identifying how a plant-based diet improves the 9 major diseases that most doctors spend the majority of their careers treating. Again, it doesn't matter what specialty you go into. When you open the door of your clinic, the people who are sitting there have one or more elements of these conditions. Let's say clogged arteries get better, and so the angina goes away. The leg pain when they walk goes away as the plaques melt out of their arteries. Type 2 diabetes resolves as the fat in their muscle cells dissipates. I'll tell you about that. Obesity melts away, as I mentioned. The arteries relax, high blood pressure comes down. It's an anti-inflammatory diet, so the folks with the lupus and rheumatoid arthritis often get dramatic improvements. The standard American diet is nasty to the gut wall and sets off inflammation, and people get ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Well, that starts to improve with a plant-based diet. There's an art to changing the diet, but that certainly responds to the food flowing through that gut. The joints that is inflamed from these non-specific arthritides, as well as lupus, arthritis, etc., they get better. The bronchial linings of the lungs are less inflamed. They open up, and so the asthmatic folks get dramatic relief from their asthma usually. And as I said, the folks with the psoriasis plaques, it's amazing over the course of a couple of weeks to see psoriasis disappear before your eyes, this stubborn, recalcitrant, chronic problem, to see the psoriasis fade away. It's stunning. You know, no one told me this is possible, but it is possible if we give the body the food it was designed to run on. So the question I want to share with you is, how does it work? What are we looking at? What drives this remission? And I want to share with you one, because I think the science is really neat, but also to give you confidence that when you, the attendees at this workshop tonight, um, talk to your friends, your family members, your doctor, whatever. No one's asking you to go into the specifics of it, but to know in your heart, this is real stuff. This is not California woo-woo pseudoscience. The body really does respond, and I want to give you some of the science behind these dramatic responses that we get. So the question is, if these diseases are caused by, if you will, a transgression in natural law. What do I mean by that? If you put diesel fuel, kerosene, into a gasoline burning engine, you're transgressing a natural law. That's a gasoline burning engine is supposed to run on gasoline. You put kerosene in there, it's oily. And it doesn't burn cleanly, and the spark plugs cake up, and the gas lines clog, and the catalytic converter breaks. You've done an unnatural act by putting jet fuel into a gasoline burning engine, and you get diseases. Well, the same thing. A diet based on meat and dairy and oil and sugars and processed foods is like putting diesel fuel in a gasoline burning engine, and it sticks to us and causes these dysfunctions. But you put in a whole food plant-based diet, a more natural diet for humans, and things get better. So what is a diet that will reverse these diseases? Well, let's consult an expert in natural eating. When I think about natural eating, I think of Professor Rwanda, who really sets the standard for natural eating. And he reminds us that we have basically the same digestive system that our gorilla cousins have. And they're up in the trees eating a steady stream of leaves and fruits and vegetation. They eat a whole food plant-based diet. Now, they're not completely vegan. The occasional termite and grub and beetle disappears down their gullet, I'm sure. But the vast majority of food that disappears down their gullet are whole plant foods. It's a high carb diet, but these are carbohydrates and they're a whole plant, slowly digestible form. And guess what? These magnificent creatures who grow to these spectacular bodies, muscular beyond belief, without eating meat, without eating cheeseburgers. They do it on a completely plant-based vegan diet with a couple of termites thrown in, I'm sure. And the most important thing, these magnificent creatures not only develop these wonderful muscles, but they do not develop atherosclerosis. They don't develop clogged arteries. They don't develop type 2 diabetes. They don't develop atherosclerosis or ulcerative colitis in the wild. When you bring them into captivity and feed them fast food, yes, they get these same diseases, but out in the wild, they die of injuries and parasites and infections, etc. But they don't die of the so-called diseases of civilization, the clogged arteries and inflammatory diseases. Do we follow their example? They're showing us what a whole food plant-based diet can do for a mammalian body designed to run it. Do we follow their example? Not so much. Again, bacon and eggs for breakfast, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken for dinner, restaurant food, fast foods, processed foods. And a steady diet of these kind of cooking, especially fried food, processed food, dairy products, with a bunch of salt and sugar and seed oils and processing chemical. This is a toxic fuel mix that permeates all the tissues in our body. And it sets off nasty reactions from inflammation to swelling, edema, etc. It affects every organ. And it's not a subtle process. This is not theoretical. They are visible to the naked eye and under the microscope. Under the naked eye, when you eat a fatty meal, you have bacon and eggs or a big sausage pizza, For the next 5 hours, your blood runs thick with fat. You can see it in the test tube after the blood is drawn and spun down in a centrifuge. Not everybody shows the fat this optically densely, but everybody has a wave of saturated fats and triglycerides that go through your bloodstream after you eat a meal like this. How can you not? And it takes a solid 5 hours for the liver to start clearing the blood out of the bloodstream. And during these 5 hours after such a meal, evil things are happening in the body. Your bad lipids, your LDL is going up. The blood becomes thicker, it becomes more viscous. Those saturated fats stick to the surface of the red blood cells. They start sticking together. The blood viscosity goes up. It has a hard time flowing through tiny capillary beds. It takes a higher pressure to force thick blood through capillary beds. That raises the blood pressure that the heart has to muster with every beat. The saturated fats damage the internal lining of the arteries, the endothelium that opens the door to atherosclerosis and plaque formation. The fat sticks in the abdominal fat stores. People get more obese. That increases inflammation and insulin resistance. We'll talk to you about that. The saturated fats are pro-inflammatory. They fan inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And as I'll show you in a minute, it makes insulin resistance worse. This happens meal after meal after meal, month after month, year after year. That's, as I said, that's visible to the naked eye. Just spin down the blood in a test tube after you eat a fatty meal. But that fat, you keep your blood fatty day after day, that fat eventually works its way into the muscle cells. And here's what it looks like. This is intramyocellular lipid, the 50-cent word of the evening. And intra means inside, myo is muscle, cell is cell, lipid is fat. This is fat in the muscle cell. Here is striated muscle, and from someone's quadriceps, thigh muscle. And this black stuff in here, this is fat in the muscle cell. This is intramyocellular lipid, and it does not belong there. It clogs up the insulin receptors and makes the person glucose intolerant and resistant to insulin and moving towards diabetes. So this is not a subtle effect that this unnatural flesh-based diet. No animal eats, no mammal, no primate eats animal flesh 3 times a day. But we two-legged humans, we indulge in that. We think steak tastes good in our mouth, but the price that we pay is a dreadful one. Yeah, now I've been focusing on the fat because it's the most visibly apparent, but there's more than just fat in this blood. After every one of these meals, you get a surge of what I call the postprandial red tide. Postprandial means after eating. And this red tide of toxins from the meat and the dairy and the oils and the processed foods floods through the bloodstream, floods through every cell in the body. I'll be talking about some of these in detail. But there's a way you eat that burger, the pizza, or the bacon and eggs, and there's a wave of saturated fats that set off inflammation, reactive sugars that turn into advanced glycation end products that set off oxidation in your proteins. Fragments of the animal muscle get into your own bloodstream through a leaky gut, and this will sets off autoimmune disease. Too much salt, I'll show you what that does in a minute. You cook meat, you get these advanced glycation end products that damages protein. The emulsifiers, the carrageenan, the polysorbate 80, it keeps the candy bar soft, but it dissolves the mucus in your gut that increases the intestinal permeability. When you broil the steak or grill the burger or fry the chicken, you're oxidizing the cholesterol, and it's the oxidized cholesterol that gets into the walls of the arteries that sets off the atherosclerotic plaque. Now, I'll talk about endotoxin that comes from the slaughterhouse that makes your gut leaky. The TMAO drives cholesterol into the artery walls. It's made by the gut bacteria that come from a meat-based diet. Broiling the steak, grilling the burger, creates cancer-causing substances that smear on the gut wall and give colon cancers. IGF-1, this is a powerful growth promoting hormone that will drive cancer growth throughout the body. Heme iron makes red meat red, but it also drives cancer growth and strokes. Don't have time to go into the mechanism. The animals in the feedlot are fed bushels of grain sprayed with herbicides and pesticides that concentrate in the animal's flesh. They drink water with mercury and cadmium and lead in it. They're given hormones and antibiotics to promote growth. These all accumulate in the animal's flesh. So when you bite into that chicken breast or that burger, you're eating all the bioconcentrated pesticides and herbicides and hormones that animal consumed during its life. You broil the steak and grill the burger, you produce these reactive aldehydes that are mutagenic. They damage your genes as they flow through your cells, the genes that control the enzymes of your biochemistry. New 5-GC is a sialic acid that only animals make, and it sets off inflammation throughout the body. These are just some of the molecular marauders that flood through the bloodstream after every meat-based meal, every fast food meal. It's a fatty tide, it's a salty tide, it's sugary, it's antigenic, sets off immune reactions. It's an acid forming from all the sulfates and phosphates in the amino acids. They said it damages your genes, sets off cancer, it's atherogenic, sets off plaque in the arteries, it promotes inflammation. It disrupts enzyme systems throughout the body. And people are keeping their blood fatty all day. Hunger is not tolerated in our society. If people are hungry, if they're home, they stick their head in the fridge for last night's dinner leftovers. If they're out, they go to the convenience store, the restaurant. Most people are keeping their blood full of fat and these red tide toxins hour after hour, day after day, month after month, year after year. It's a high salt diet. There's salt in the meat, salt in the cheese, salt in the fries, salt in the chips. And that not only raises the blood pressure, that increases the risk of congestive heart failure and plaque formation, heart attacks and strokes and kidney disease. But we're now learning that high salt diets stimulate Th17 helper cells that open the door to autoimmune diseases like lupus. So who knew that a high salt diet can contribute to lupus? But it can. And as a recovering saltaholic myself, I've become very interested in learning how to entertain my tongue with non-salty flavorings like lemon juice and balsamic vinegars and salt substitutes. But I've really cut back on my salt intake and the processed foods that I have. It all cheese is full of salt. You can't eat unsalted cheese there. So welcome to camp. Stop kidding yourself. If you eat this food, you're eating a high salt diet that is not helping you. The sugars, you eat sugars, it floods through your tissues. The sugars stick to proteins, it glycosylates proteins all over your body. And the heat then from your own body heat oxidizes these sugar sticky proteins and forms advanced glycation end products. These are teeming with free radicals that damage the lens in your eyes, giving you cataracts. It damages the arteries in your brain, opening the door to Alzheimer's. So eating sugar, vegan junk food is nasty stuff, and you can really hurt yourself. I've got a few vegans not doing well because they can't keep their hands off this stuff. Yeah, the saturated fats that are in all meats, as I showed you, makes more insulin resistance. This is not real food. This is edible food-like substances out of brightly colored packages and boxes, and they're teeming with toxins that wind up aging you and hurting you. So here are the red tide marauders here, and we've gone through most of these. The cows in the dairy are all pregnant these days, so their milk has estrogens that promote everything from breast lumps and uterine fibroids in women to prostate cancer in men. You don't want to send that red tide through your system after every meal. And as I mentioned, the Maillard reaction, which is that happens in your tissues when you flood them, not only with sugars, but it turns out that you generate more of these AGEs teeming with free radicals when you cook meat. That generates even more AGEs than cooking the sugars. But the burgers and the fries and the bacon are teeming with these AGEs that then damage the proteins in your eyes, opening the door to cataract, damages the elastin fibers in your skin, turning your skin into an old suitcase. And you don't want to lace the arteries in your brain with AGEs because they damage the endothelial linings of the arteries, and that opens the door to Alzheimer's or vascular disease up in the brain. And these are when you eat the burger or the pizzas, these all flood into the tissues at the same time and they start interacting with each other. There's a malignant synergy here. And the fried foods damage the lining of the gut, and that in turn allows fragments of animal protein, the peptides, to leak into the tissues, setting off immune reactions. You get a malignant synergy. Here's another one. The fat in the burgers makes this endotoxin stuff from the bacteria on the meat that makes your gut leaky. It allows the endotoxin to penetrate deeper into the walls of the gut. I don't have time to go into all the mechanisms, but there's a malignant synergy as you eat this stuff. It's not just the individual molecules, but what they do to your tissues as they hit your tissues at the same time. They cause a lot of molecular mischief there. And if you do the math, eat 3 meals a day for every year, that's over 1,000 times a year, you're flooding your tissues with the red tide. And so to the clinicians, to the doctors in the audience, and to the doctors I lecture to at the medical schools, I'm saying in the clinic, when you open the exam room door and you see the man with the angina and the clogged arteries and the lady with the asthma pulling on her albuterol inhaler and the man with the type 2 diabetes injecting insulin and the lady with the acne scarred skin, and the doctors say, oh, etiology unknown. We don't know the cause of these diseases. Really, doctor? How in this day and age, how can you say that you're not really looking at the effects of the food over time, creating these health effects? So finally, that blessed moment comes when the patient's getting out of the shower, they catch a glimpse of themselves in the mirror, they don't like what they see, they don't like their big protruding belly, they don't like their sore joints, they don't like the medicine cabinet full of pills. They go to the doctor and say, Doc, what do I need to do to get my health back? Tell me, I'll be boots in, committed. What do I do? And the doctor, who's hopefully taken lifestyle medicine training by now, says the first and most important thing is adopt a plant-based diet like they serve at True North. Start consuming a diet based on whole plant foods. As soon as they do that, these beneficial changes start to happen. It's not overnight, of course, but every day this food stream floods through the tissues, that gets better, the body gets healthier. The question is why. I owe you some explanations here. So now we'll finish out with a bit of science here. All right, so here the person is still eating the standard Western diet, and they're flooding their tissues with these red tide marauders after every meal. As soon as the person says, I'm done with this, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to get on the plant-based train, boots in, committed. As soon as they make that change, as soon as now the food stream is salads and soups and steamed veggies and fruits and vegetables, here's what happens. The first and most important thing is that the red tide stops. There is respite from this repeated chemical injury every 4 hours. Do you know that every cell in your body, certainly every tissue, every organ, has repair mechanisms built into the genes? They know how to repair membranes, they know how to quench free radicals, but these repair mechanisms can't work if every 4 hours you are flooding the red tide through your tissues. Do you know you have along your DNA strands where your genes are located, you've got these globular proteins that spend all day going up and down your DNA these are DNA editing enzymes that spend all day going up and down your DNA strands looking for errors and damage and mismatched nucleotides. And when they find them, they fix them. They repair the damage in your DNA. What a brilliant mechanism. When I first read that, I put the book down and I applauded. That's so brilliant. Well, you've got this mechanism, but they can't work efficiently if every 4 hours you're flooding the red tide toxins through your bloodstream. So now these repair enzymes are now free to work full-fledged. And and now, so first of all, the most thing, you stop the red tide damage every 4 hours. And then the second layer of healing happens because instead of the red tide marauders, now what is flooding through your cells with every meal is an entire different set of molecules. First of all, it's a high water content diet. All the soups and salads and steamed veggies and fruits are full of water. And that makes the blood more watery, less viscous. The blood is more free flowing. So there's a surge of more free flowing blood as through your capillary beds as the blood viscosity goes down. So more oxygen and nutrients are delivered. But that works very well because all the dark leafy greens you're eating, all the broccoli and kale and collards, etc., that increases the production of nitric oxide in the walls of the arteries. So you get this subtle dilation of the artery walls. And that has a wonderful effect due to a law in physics called Poiseuille's law. And that says just a little dilation in the arteries means a big increase in blood flow. The flow of liquid through a pipe will increase by the fourth power of the increase of the radius. And so if the artery increases by a factor of 2 in its radius, the blood flow increases by a factor of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, factor of 16. You get this vastly increased blood flow, surging more oxygen and nutrients through the tissue. So, and the dilated blood vessels means the pressure starts coming down. So blood pressure comes down. That happens immediately with every meal. It's a positive synergy that's happening from the less viscous blood and the dilated blood vessels. When you pull the animal flesh out, you're pulling out the arachidonic acid, which drives inflammation throughout the body. And now all the fats are coming from plant oils, and many of which are in the omega-3 family, and it's an anti-inflammatory fat mixture. So you've changed the entire inflammatory balance in the tissues from a pro-inflammatory one to an anti-inflammatory one. All these colorful fruits and vegetables are full of antioxidants that quench free radicals, ROS, reactive oxygen species. These are the free radicals that rip electrons off your proteins and your cell membranes. Well, these colorful antioxidants quench the free radicals, so the oxidative stress in the tissues goes down. When you change the food going through the gut, you change the microbes that live in that gut. If you're eating meat and dairy, you are promoting the growth of pathogenic Bacteroidetes microbes that set off inflammation, they promote cancer growth. Well, you pull out the animal flesh and the dairy products, and now everything coming down into the colon is plant fiber. And that feeds the beneficial microbes like the Prevotella microbes that put out anti-inflammatory byproducts. And one of the products that the Prevotella put out are neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin. These are feel-good chemicals. And they work their way into the brain. And people say, you know, ever since I changed my diet, I feel a bit better, less angry. Well, that's not a placebo effect. That's a gift from the microbiome in your gut by feeding them the food that they're really looking for. When you stop eating other creatures' cholesterol, your own lipids are going to get better, so the odds of forming plaque go down. The fats in your diet work their way out to your skin oils, and the guys who eat lots of meat have lots of fats that turn into foul-smelling chemicals. Well, you pull those out and just go with the plant foods, and now the plant oils are constituting the lipids in your skin, and they don't smell. And then the guy say, "Hey, my wife says I don't smell so much anymore." Again, not a placebo effect. When you stop eating the dairy with all the estrogens, your own estrogen level will go down. That stabilizes tissue. High protein diets, the famous high protein diets, are not gentle on the kidney. When all those amino acids and the protein slam into the glomeruli, the filters in the kidney, it damages them. It forces them to go into a state of hyperfiltration that can damage the kidneys. Well, plant proteins absorb much more slowly. It's less acidic. It's much more gentle. Kidney function often improves on this diet. The asthmatic folks have less sticky mucus. They wheeze less. White blood cells go down for good reasons, not because they're bone marrow failure, but we're not preying in the bone marrow with endotoxin 3 times a day. These are just some of the changes that happen in all the tissues, all the cells, when one changes the food stream from an animal-based one to a plant-based one. In fact, if someone asked me, Doc, in one word, when you move from an animal-based standard Western diet to a whole food, plant-based food stream, what changes? What changes? Going from animal-based to plant-based, what changes? Everything changes. It's an entirely different physiology. The blood's more free flowing. There's less oxidative, less free radicals. The gut flora changes. The lipids are changing. Everything changes. And one way to look at it, if you're eating a standard Western diet, it's like a polluted river going through your tissues. Here's the red tide. But eating a whole food plant-based diet sends a surge of water and antioxidants. It's like a cleansing river going through your tissues, washing out these toxins. It's a bit of a hokey analogy, but the water in this cleansing river is the water in the fruits and vegetables. That's what you want to send through your tissues with every meal, and the results are just profound. The waters of life are in the fruits and vegetables. And I could spend 3 lectures going through every one of these organ systems, showing how a whole food plant-based diet helps reverse the diseases in these conditions. And when I'm lecturing the medical students, I talk specifically how atherosclerotic plaques will melt away and how type 2 diabetes improves. As I mentioned, I work now at Aroga Lifestyle Medicine Clinic in Victoria, British Columbia. Aroga in Sanskrit means a blemish, an injury, an illness. So aroga means no blemish, no spotless good health there. It's a Sanskrit word. And people come in, they are referred by their general practitioner. They have their initial appointment with the Aroga internist, and the next stop is the plant-based dietitian, and that her services are paid for in the program there. And I follow these folks up, but they get health coaches if they need them. They get the cooking classes, etc. And then I'm going to be following these folks up. I'm going to gather up their data showing how much they improve when the plant-based dietitian is on the team. And I want to then come back to the States and make presentations to the American College of Cardiology, the American Medical Association, saying this is what happens when you have a plant-based dietitian on the primary care treatment team. And telemedicine works beautifully to help these folks get educated and then stay on the course. So we're getting to the end. I didn't drill down on how diabetes reverses, but the fat, that intracellular lipid that's clogging up the insulin receptors is burned for energy when you go to a whole food plant-based diet, and that black stuff clears out of the cells, the insulin receptors work, and the plaques get smaller in the arteries, and the angina goes away. Again, when I talk to the medical students, we go into the specifics. I invite people, if you want, if this is inspiring you, and you say, well, what do I do? Where do I go from here? I want to get on this train. Take a picture of the slide. You're going to get this back in the replay. There's plenty of transition programs. Rochester Lifestyle Medicine got a great jump start. So does PCRM. Forks Over Knives has a nice transition program. Your body's just waiting for your next healthy meal, and everything gets better from there. And I tell the young doctors, if you don't recognize that it's the food your patients are eating, if you play etiology unknown, we don't know the cause of these diseases, then you're condemning yourself to be like the blind man and the elephant, medical style, where every specialist is in their little cubicle, and the cardiologist is treating the clogged arteries, and the endocrinologist treating type 2 diabetes, and the gastroenterologist is treating the colitis. And they don't realize they're all treating the same disease. It's the food, it's the food, it's the food. So I figure somebody needs to reach the medical students with this message. And the little voice on my shoulder said, how about you, Doc? And so for the last 4 years, We have formed our nonprofit Moving Medicine Forward, and I've been going to the nation's medical schools and reaching the first, second, third year medical students before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment, and giving them the message that one, the diseases you're going to spend the majority of your career treating, these are reversible diseases. You need to know that. One, these are reversible, unlike what you've been taught, that these are lifetime afflictions. And two, a whole food plant-based diet is the key to reversing these. Not all you have to do. And the other lifestyle pillars of exercise and sleep and avoidance of toxins, all that's all important. But it starts with a whole food plant-based diet. That's where the magic really happens. And trying to get this message into their young heads. You don't have to make a lot of waves in medical school, but when you get out into your own practice, incorporate this, practice medicine like you know it ought to be practiced, and to move them along at the end of the lecture, I ask a provocative question. Knowing how reversible these killer diseases are that you're going to spend most of your career treating, that these are all largely or completely reversible, the whole food plant-based diet, knowing that, you want to heal these patients or don't you? You want to help get to the root cause of these illnesses, or you just want to manage their chronic disease. If you're just going to be a chronic disease manager, it's a dismal way to practice medicine. You're going to watch these people do a slow motion crash and burn, and you're going to leave medicine. It's really a dismal way to practice medicine. You want to see them get healthy, get real about the role that their diet is playing, and help them get on a healthy diet and lifestyle, a plant-based one, and watch these people get healthier right before your eyes. So as I'm going around to the nation's med schools, I tell them I'm like the scout from the front. I've been in the battle for years. I'm the scout reporting back to you guys, the reinforcements that are about to enter the fray. And the message as the scout I'm desperately trying to get across, it's the food. It's been the food all along. We're looking here and there, high, low, genes, whatever. It's the freaking food these people are eating. And importantly, these are reversible diseases, and a plant-predominant diet is the key to reversing them. If you want to learn more about what we're doing and help us out, we have expenses. Go to our website, movingmedforward, actually .org. We're now a .org. I got to change my slide. Movingmedforward.org will get you to our website. And I tell the young docs to don't go screaming at your professors. Why aren't you gotten your patients on a plant-based diet? It's a slow process to get the hospitals and the medical schools on board, but we're doing it school by school. It's starting to happen. And it starts with the public understanding and the public demanding this from their doctors. Don't be obnoxious. Don't, you need to educate your doctor. People say, how do I find a plant-based doctor? Make your own doctor a plant-based one. There's wonderful resources available on these Jumpstart programs. Print them out, bring them into your doctor and talk about them. Or, just do it. If you got a doctor that's just close-minded, don't wave the red cape in front of the bull. Just do it. You start doing it yourself. Oatmeal and fruit for breakfast, lunches and dinners of soups and salads and steamed veggies and curries and stews and soups. You just do it yourself, and your body will know what to do it. All you need to do then is notify the doctor's office. I've started eating healthy. I'm losing weight. My blood pressure is going to come down. Will the doctor work with me to help lower my meds if they become too strong, which they will? Or if you got type 2 diabetes, tell them I'm eating healthier. You don't have to mention plant-based. Don't mention the V word that you've gone vegan or vegetarian. Just say I'm eating healthier. I'm losing weight. Will the doctor work with me to lower my insulin levels if it becomes too strong, which it will? And that's all you need to do. And if the doctor's curious, there's plenty of information to share with them. We have it on our website. But if they're not interested, you just do it. That's the most important thing. Let the doctor ask. So the message I give to the students, new era in healing is open to all of us. It begins with recognizing the power of the food on our plates. The plant-based wave is breaking. Line up your surfboard. Start your own era of health and healing with your very next whole food plant-based meal. There's wonderful organizations, the Plantrition Project, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Now, these are all on our website and all in my handout at drklaper.com. So those are the mechanisms of disease. There's a lot of stuff I know. I only just skim the surface on some of these conditions, but at least you need to know everything changes when you go from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet. And Dr. Klaper says, to thine own health be true. Shakespeare didn't say that, but he should have. And you will get the rewards from giving your body the food that it was designed to run on. So with that, hopefully we got the message across. We got a few minutes left for questions, and I thank everybody for their attention.
Thank you, Dr. Klaper. That was fantastic. Amazing how much you covered in such a short time. And I learned a new word, pharmacosclerosis. I like that one. We need to protect our medical students and doctors from that. I like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you notice that Dr. Klaper didn't say there's one diet for cardiac disease and one diet from diabetes, one for arthritis. No, it's the same whole food plant-based diet. He says, you know, you don't need supplements, you just need the whole food. And I appreciate you breaking down the red tide for us and the marauders that you talked about. That was fantastic. So Natasha, I bet you have a few questions for Dr. Klaper, don't you?
Well, it's very telling, Dr. Klaper, that your last slide was a wave, because I'm going to hit you with a tidal wave of questions here. So are you ready?
Ready. Okay.
Okay. So there are people this evening that are veterans to whole food plant-based eating, and then there are those who are very new to this. And so could you just speak briefly about, there's still some questions about, well, is fish okay? Are eggs okay? And what about things like oil? Could you address that just right out of the gate for us?
Okay. Is fish okay? Long story short, no, it's not. For a number of reasons. There's nothing in fish you really need. The omega-3 fats, or the fish don't make it. It's from the algae that they swallow all day in the ocean. Well, we can get the omega-3s from those same algae. That's not an issue. But the fish are now so polluted with mercury and pesticides and dioxins. You look at that piece of salmon on your plate and say, what did that animal eat? It's scary to be eating all these concentrated pesticides. Plus, we are clear cutting the oceans. We're strip mining them in these massive 10-mile wide nets. For every piece of wild caught fish on your plate, there's dozens of whales and sharks and seabirds and dolphins that have been drowned in those nets. Enough. We've used fishing up. Let the oceans heal at this point. There's nothing we need from. We've damaged them badly. Let the fish off the hook. Nothing in it that you need. A lot you don't. Is fish okay? What was the other thing that you mentioned?
Oil is another
Oil.
one. Oil
Yeah.
and eggs. You
And
mentioned
eggs again. There's nothing in eggs that you need. There's plenty of protein in beans and beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. So you don't need the egg white. The egg yolk is full of choline that creates this TMAO stuff that damages your arteries. It's full of cholesterol. There's nothing in eggs that you need. And again, what the chickens ate shows up in the eggs as well. And the oils are an issue. The 2 drops of sesame oil is not going to hurt anybody for flavoring in the peanut sauce of the Asian restaurant. But the issue is a matter of fats. Yay, fats. We need fats for your skin oils, for your hormones, for your brain. We need some fats every day. The plea is to get them out of whole foods. Get your fats, mostly the omega-3s, out of walnuts and flax seeds and dark green leafy vegetables, avocados. Get your fats out of whole foods. The problem with the oils is this. When you eat a walnut, when you eat a piece of coconut, the micro droplets of walnut oil, flaxseed oil, whatever, are tightly bound to the fiber of the walnut, of the flaxseed, and you eat it and chew it up. It takes hours for your digestive enzymes to get into that piece of walnut, for the amylase enzymes to break up the sugars that are holding the microdroplets, for the lipase enzymes to get in and to start emulsifying the fats. And as a result, the tiny amount of oil finally gets absorbed into the bloodstream. A little bit rises in the bloodstream. One passes through the liver, it's pretty much gone. They don't have much of a pharmaceutical effect in your body. The fats in whole plant foods. But you crush 1,000 olives and or 50 pounds of coconut, and you get liquid coconut fat, liquid olive fat, liquid any fat in that glass bottle. Nothing slows down the absorption. You pour a few tablespoons of that on your salad or on your pasta, and that fat leaps into your bloodstream. Now you got liquid fat floating in your bloodstream. You can see the globules under the microscope. And those fats start having pharmaceutical effects. Those fats, the liquid fats, penetrate into the endothelial lining of the arteries and paralyze their ability to produce nitric oxide to allow the blood vessels to dilate. The omega-6 oils set off inflammatory reactions. The fats inhibit blood clotting. If you fall and hit your head, you may bleed into the brain. They certainly get into the tissues and increase insulin resistance. Those liquid oils produce pharmaceutical effects that are not friendly to your body. Now, a teaspoon of olive oil on a salad probably not going to hurt you. But the folks who are poor, Mediterranean diet, and they pour half a cup of oil over their pasta, whatever, they are putting all that liquid fat in their bloodstream, and it produces effects that are not friendly. So get your fats out of whole foods, not out of glass bottles. It's a flavoring, as I said, a couple drops of sesame oil. It's okay. But don't be using volumes of oils and think that you're doing good things for yourself. You're not.
Thank you, Dr. Klaper. You mentioned two words in that explanation there. One of them was choline and the other one was fats. And I have two questions coming up. The first one is, someone asked, is there a correlation to a choline deficiency that may increase ALT levels eating whole food plant-based? Is a choline supplement a good idea?
I don't think so. Again, choline can turn into trimethylamine oxide. There should be plenty of choline in especially beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. There's enough choline around. And I said extra choline might wind up producing substances that you really don't need in your body. So no, I would not be taking extra choline. And there are some cancers that thrive with more choline all the way around. I wouldn't use that as a supplement. Whole foods.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then the question about fat is, will the fat in silken or regular tofu also cause inflammation the way fat in meat will?
No, there's more omega-3s in it, and it's a small amount of fat in the tofu. I really don't think tofu can be looked at as pro-inflammatory. There's so many good anti-inflammatory substances in it. I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. And then moving on just a little deeper was kind of some of the fats and things like that. So what about, are there any recent studies regarding the necessity or benefit of supplementing with DHA and EPA over just adequate intake of ALA?
Oh boy, I'm right on the fence with that.
I know that's a tough one.
A tough one. And then I stopped taking it for a while. My omega-3 index went down. I started taking it again, but I read articles saying you really don't need the stuff. But then I read other articles that yes, people who take it have less risk of dementia. And there's no real solid studies. You can't really do the definitive study. You would need 1,000 people eating the same diet, half eating a DHA supplement, half taking placebos, follow them for 50 years and see who gets the dementia and who doesn't. Well, you can't do that study. People don't eat the same diet for 50 years. You're never going to do that study, and so we're trying to tease these solutions out from observational studies. I'm taking a few times a week. I take an algal DHA, but is it really doing anything? I don't think it's doing any harm. Large doses taken daily might change the metabolism in your own tissues, but I think taking a couple times a week probably isn't causing any damage. Is it doing any good? I don't know. And so stay tuned. When I get a definitive answer, I'll put something out on my website there. People want to take it, fine. If not, then you can't cheat your body. You need those flax seeds and dark leafy greens and walnuts and chia seeds. Make sure you're taking omega-3s in their whole plant form if you're not taking the algae supplement.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Now, moving on to B12, because many people ask about B12 supplementation, and someone has recently purchased some that has fructose and sorbitol as sweeteners. Is there a problem with these sweeteners in a supplement like this? And is also methylcobalamin form, is there any benefit to this form? Which do you recommend? Because there are the two forms.
Right. To make a long story short, the amount of sorbitol is so tiny in these tiny little sublingual tablets. It's a homeopathic dose. I would not take it based on the sorbitol in there. It's the dose makes the poison, and that dose is so tiny. It's not a real issue. Methylcobalamin versus cyanocobalamin. I used to be a methylcobalamin fan, but Dr. Greger has prevailed upon me to see that it doesn't make the methylcobalamin's not as shelf stable, and the cyanocobalamin is cheaper and more shelf stable. And so I've been taking the cyanocobalamin. It works, and again, the amount of cyanide in it is so infinitesimally small. I don't think it's an issue to have to worry about.
Thank you very much. Now, this is kind of switching gears. And have you seen success with the gradual reversal of artery issues in the brain, the same as we see them with arteries of the heart? And this person, there was a backstory here, has had some stroke issues and ongoing risk of future stroke. And so they're just wondering if they were to follow some protocols, say like Dr. Esselstyn's reversing heart disease, would it also have effect on the arteries of the brain?
One would think absolutely yes. It's a total body disease. The artery plaques that are building up, it's in all the arteries and all over the body, including the brain. And you have to think, as Dr. Esselstyn program melts away the plaque in the coronary arteries, it's going to have a similar effect in the brain. The arteries are a little different, but not much in the brain. So absolutely, I think it's the absolute reasonable act to do for yourself if you've got artery issues, if you already had some mini strokes or whatever. Absolutely jump on Dr. Esselstyn's diet, boots in. And your arteries are never not looking. They know every meal you've eaten. And so, man, make sure every meal sends a surge of blood through your brain that's full of antioxidants and no free sugars and all the things that we talked about. So absolutely, it's the move. If you've got artery disease in the brain, get on Dr. Esselstyn's program.
Okay. And I've heard both you and Dr. Hawley just refer to, all of these different diseases, conditions, things that people are challenged with their health, all respond well to whole food, plant-based nutrition. This person's question is kind of along the lines of the artery question, but a little different. Have you seen or can you speak about any particular differences that might be for reversing neurodegenerative diseases? Is there anything that might be a little different with those?
Possibly. I believe you may have, but if not, you should have Dr. Sherzai, the neurologist, the plant-based neurologist, this is their wheelhouse, neurodegenerative diseases, and they're plant-based neurologists. And I've not been keeping up on all their recommendations. They may, for specific neurologic problems, they may have a supplement program or a special food program. So I will respectfully just ask people to Google the Brain Docs or the Sherzai, Sherzai, at Loma Linda, and get on their website, and you'll get their guidance for neurodegenerative diseases.
Okay. Thank you for that excellent resource. Okay, two last questions and then we'll wrap it up. And I think you can probably do this quite quickly. One is, please explain how hypoglycemia is different from diabetes and what to eat or not to eat with this condition is the first one.
Hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia?
Hypo.
Oh, well, those are low blood sugar states, and depends on the person. There's medical issues, there's insulin secreting tumors and all sorts of evil things that could cause it. But also the person who's on a very low carbohydrate diet, the keto folks or whatever, who's just eating fat and protein all day, they run very low sugars. And then if they go out for a good walk and burn the sugar that's in their blood, that sugar is going to drop and they'll get the headache and lightheadedness. But that's a not healthy physiology. That's the wrong fuel that you're putting in the engine, and that's one of the symptoms of that. The beauty of a whole food plant-based diet, when you're eating rice and beans and greens, it keeps a steady level of sugar in your blood, and hypoglycemia should not be a problem. But if you eat too much fat and clog up your insulin receptors, then when you eat sugars, the insulin doesn't work and the sugar piles up in your bloodstream and you get these high blood sugars, the opposite of hypoglycemia, you get hyperglycemia. But again, that's just an artifact of a high fat diet. We should be eating, the beauty of whole plant foods, of the soups themselves, they're naturally low in fats. And they don't clog up your insulin receptors. And even if you eat a baked potato or whatever, sugar goes up, sugar comes down. And it doesn't cause damage in your tissues there. People are so carbophobic unnecessarily here. So hyperglycemia is a result of too much fat in the diet. Hypoglycemia is not enough healthy carbohydrates. Neither of those should be an issue on a whole food plant-based diet, assuming you have healthy pancreas function to begin with.
Dr. Klaper, I think we need to end it right there. That was beautiful. That we're at the 8:15 mark. I think that really brought closure to everything. I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Holly to wrap it up this evening.
Again, fantastic presentation, Dr. Klaper. You've been enlightening and informative to our audience and all of us. So I thank you so much for your time and joining us from north of the border and from Canada. Again, our sincere and great thanks to you.
Thank you very much. I wish health and happiness to all your viewers. Eat plants and the world's going to get better, and so will each of us as well. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you. So on behalf of the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, we thank you for your attendance tonight. Good night.